Your cells are sending you a distress signal every afternoon at 3 p.m. That wave of exhaustion, the brain fog, the desperate reach for coffee or sugar, it's not a willpower problem. It's your metabolism failing to switch between fuel sources. And if you ignore it, you're looking at a decade of declining energy, stubborn weight gain, and accelerating metabolic disease. We're going to examine the 3 biological systems that fail simultaneously in women over 35, creating this afternoon crash. The clinical evidence is clear. This isn't normal fatigue, it's metabolic inflexibility, and it predicts how your body will handle energy for the next 20 years. By the end, you'll understand the precise intervention that reverses it. Metabolic inflexibility is your cell's inability to switch between burning carbohydrates and burning fat based on what you eat. You're trapped in a carb-dependent energy cycle. Here's what happens inside your body. After lunch, insulin should clear glucose into your cells for immediate energy. Once that glucose is used, your metabolism should seamlessly shift to burning stored fat. But in metabolic inflexibility, your cells resist insulin. They can't pull in the glucose efficiently, even though your blood sugar is elevated. So you're simultaneously starving for cellular fuel and dealing with high blood sugar. Your pancreas responds by flooding your bloodstream with even more insulin to force the glucose in. This creates the 3 p.m. crash. The timing reveals the pattern. You eat lunch around noon, your blood sugar spikes, your pancreas overcompensates with excess insulin. By 3 p.m., that insulin has driven your glucose too low, triggering reactive hypoglycemia. Your brain, which runs almost exclusively on glucose, sends urgent hunger signals. You crave quick carbs. Most women miss the early clinical markers: constant carb cravings between meals, inability to skip a meal without feeling shaky or irritable, small skin tags appearing on your neck or underarms, darkened skin patches called acanthosis nigricans, often on the back of your neck or in skin folds. These aren't cosmetic issues, they're visible signs of insulin resistance. Why does this escalate after 35? Estrogen decline is the primary driver. As estrogen drops during perimenopause, it promotes visceral fat accumulation around your organs. This isn't subcutaneous fat you can pinch. It's metabolically active fat that releases inflammatory cytokines, signaling molecules that further block your insulin receptors. The more visceral fat you accumulate, the worse your insulin resistance becomes. It's a feedback loop. Now let's look at what's happening inside your mitochondria. These are your cellular power plants. They generate ATP, the energy currency your body runs on. When you're metabolically flexible, your mitochondria efficiently process both glucose and fat. But in metabolic inflexibility, your mitochondria become overloaded. They're flooded with excess glucose and fat simultaneously because your cells can't regulate fuel intake properly. This overload reduces their oxidative capacity by 30 to 50% according to clinical studies on mitochondrial function in insulin-resistant women. Your mitochondria literally produce less energy per unit of fuel, so even when you eat, you feel tired. The research shows this isn't just about one bad afternoon. It's a preview of how your metabolism will handle the next 2 decades. Women with untreated metabolic inflexibility progress to full insulin resistance within 5 to 7 years. From there, the pathway to type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and chronic fatigue becomes significantly more likely. The clinical data from continuous glucose monitors reveals the pattern clearly. Women experiencing afternoon crashes show 2 to 3 times more glucose variability throughout the day compared to metabolically flexible peers. Their blood sugar swings wildly after meals, crashes hard, then spikes again when they reach for a snack. This isn't sustainable, and your body is telling you that right now, at 3 p.m. every single day, estrogen plays a dual role in energy regulation that most women don't understand. It enhances insulin sensitivity, making your cells more responsive to insulin signal, and it supports mitochondrial function, helping your cellular power plants work efficiently. As estrogen declines during perimenopause, starting anywhere from age 35 to 47, both of these systems begin to falter. Your cells become more resistant to insulin, your mitochondria produce less energy. The metabolic inflexibility we just discussed accelerates dramatically. The research on estrogen withdrawal shows this isn't subtle. Women in early perimenopause experience measurable declines in glucose disposal rates, meaning their muscles and liver clear sugar from the bloodstream less efficiently after meals. This directly contributes to the postprandial glucose spikes that trigger afternoon crashes. Now, add cortisol to this equation. Chronic stress elevates cortisol throughout the day. Cortisol triggers your liver to release stored glucose into your bloodstream, raising blood sugar independent of what you've eaten. It also promotes insulin resistance in your muscle and fat cells. This creates a collision. You have elevated glucose from cortisol, you have declining insulin sensitivity from estrogen loss, your pancreas responds with more insulin. By mid-afternoon, you're caught in a feedback loop that guarantees energy crashes. The clinical evidence shows women with high perceived stress scores have significantly worse glucose variability and more frequent hyperglycemic episodes in the afternoon compared to women with lower stress levels, even when controlling for diet and body composition. Progesterone withdrawal adds another layer. As progesterone declines, it disrupts serotonin production in your brain. Serotonin regulates mood, but it also affects sleep architecture. Lower serotonin means poorer sleep quality and less restorative deep sleep. Poor sleep directly impairs glucose metabolism the next day. Studies using continuous glucose monitors show that even one night of disrupted sleep increases insulin resistance by 20 to 30% the following morning. If you're sleeping poorly night after night due to progesterone decline, you're compounding your metabolic inflexibility daily. The thyroid connection often gets missed entirely. Many women over 35 have subclinical thyroid slowdown that standard labs don't catch. Doctors typically test TSH and maybe free T4, but they don't test reverse T3, the inactive form of thyroid hormone that can block cellular energy production. Elevated reverse T3 reduces your metabolic rate and impairs mitochondrial function. You're producing less cellular energy across the board, which makes the afternoon crash even more pronounced. Iron overload becomes a factor in postmenopausal women. Without monthly menstruation, ferritin levels can climb above 200 nanograms per milliliter. Excess iron increases oxidative stress and worsens insulin resistance through inflammatory pathways. Standard hormone panels miss this entire picture. Conventional testing focuses on estrogen and progesterone levels, sometimes testosterone, but they ignore the metabolic markers that actually predict energy crashes: fasting insulin, HOMI-IR score, inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein. The clinical evidence on women with polycystic ovary syndrome is instructive here. PCOS patients show insulin resistance rates of 50 to 70%. Perimenopause amplifies this same risk in women without any PCOS history, purely through hormonal decline. These hormonal shifts don't just cause temporary fatigue. They fundamentally alter how your body processes every single meal you eat. Let's examine what happens to your blood glucose after a typical lunch. Even meals you consider healthy can spike your blood sugar 40 to 60 points if you have early insulin resistance. A salad with grilled chicken sounds metabolically sound, but add dried cranberries, candied nuts, and a honey mustard dressing, and you've just consumed 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrates, much of it from added sugars and refined grains. Your blood glucose rises sharply within 30 to 45 minutes. In a metabolically flexible person, insulin would clear this glucose efficiently into muscle and liver cells. The glucose gets used for energy or stored as glycogen. Blood sugar returns to baseline smoothly. But in insulin resistance, your cells don't respond properly to that insulin signal. Your pancreas detects the elevated glucose and floods your bloodstream with insulin to compensate. We're talking about insulin levels 2 to 3 times higher than what a metabolically flexible person would produce from the same meal. This is the insulin overresponse, and it drives your glucose too low by mid-afternoon. You experience reactive hypoglycemia. Your blood sugar drops below the threshold your brain needs to function optimally. The brain runs almost exclusively on glucose, so when levels fall, it triggers an urgent metabolic alarm. Ghrelin, your primary hunger hormone, surges. Cortisol rises to signal your liver to release stored glucose. You feel intense cravings for quick carbohydrates because your brain is demanding immediate fuel. This is why you crave sugar at 3 p.m. It's not a character flaw. It's a hormonal response to low blood glucose. Most women reach for processed snacks or another coffee at this point. The snack temporarily raises glucose, giving you 20 to 30 minutes of relief, but then insulin spikes again, driving glucose back down within 90 minutes. You're on the same roller coaster, just delayed. Caffeine adds its own problem. It stimulates cortisol and adrenaline, which raise blood sugar temporarily through stress pathways. But caffeine also impairs insulin sensitivity for several hours after consumption. You're making tomorrow's crash worse. The clinical markers of this pattern extend beyond afternoon fatigue. If you have 3 or more of these, you're likely dealing with early metabolic syndrome, triglycerides above 150 milligrams per deciliter, HDL cholesterol below 50, waist circumference over 33 inches, fasting glucose above 100. These thresholds predict cardiovascular disease and diabetes risk more accurately than body weight alone. The inflammation connection ties this together. When your fat cells become overloaded with stored triglycerides, they release inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha and IL-6. These molecules travel through your bloodstream and impair mitochondrial function throughout your body. Every energy transaction becomes less efficient. Your cells require more insulin to process the same amount of glucose. Your mitochondria produce less ATP from the same amount of fuel. The fatigue compound's continuous glucose monitor data makes this pattern visible. Women with afternoon crashes show glucose curves that look like mountain ranges spiking and crashing repeatedly. Metabolically flexible women show gentle rolling hills with glucose staying within a narrow 20-point range throughout the day. The good news is this pattern reverses when you understand the precise interventions that restore fuel flexibility. The first step is testing. You need data before you can design an intervention. Request comprehensive labs from your doctor. Fasting insulin, not just fasting glucose. HOMA-IR score, which calculates insulin resistance from your fasting glucose and insulin levels. A full lipid panel, including triglycerides and HDL. Ferritin to check iron status. C-reactive protein for inflammation. And a complete thyroid panel, TSH, free T3, free T4, and reverse T3. Most standard panels won't include all of these. You may need to specifically request them or work with a functional medicine provider who understands metabolic health. Once you have your baseline, start with meal sequencing. This is the most powerful intervention for blunting glucose spikes. Eat fiber and protein before carbohydrates at every meal. Start your lunch with vegetables, then eat your protein source. Then, if you're including starches or grains, eat those last. This simple sequence reduces postprandial glucose spikes by 30 to 40%, according to research on meal composition timing. The fiber creates a physical barrier in your digestive tract that slows carbohydrate absorption. The protein stimulates incretin hormones that improve insulin sensitivity. By the time carbohydrates arrive, your body is primed to handle them efficiently. Breakfast composition determines your glucose stability for the entire day. A protein-rich breakfast with 30 grams or more of protein improves insulin sensitivity for 8 to 10 hours. Women who eat high-protein breakfasts show significantly less glucose variability in the afternoon compared to those who eat carbohydrate-dominant breakfasts, even when total calories are matched. Exercise timing gives you a metabolic advantage. A 10-minute walk immediately after lunch activates GLUT4 transporters in your muscle cells. These transporters pull glucose out of your bloodstream and into your muscles without requiring insulin. You're clearing glucose through a secondary pathway. The research shows even light movement after meals reduces postprandial glucose by 20 to 30%. You don't need intense exercise, just movement, intermittent fasting, or time-restricted eating enhances mitochondrial biogenesis. Limiting your eating window to 8 to 10 hours per day gives your body extended periods in a fasted state. During fasting, your cells upregulate genes that build new mitochondria and improve fat oxidation capacity. Most women see measurable improvements in fuel switching ability within 2 to 4 weeks of consistent time restriction. Strength training builds metabolic flexibility at the cellular level. Resistance exercise 3 to 5 times weekly increases muscle mass, and muscle tissue is highly insulin sensitive. More muscle means more glucose disposal capacity. Your body can handle carbohydrates more efficiently without spiking insulin. Stress and sleep optimization support hormone recovery. Prioritize 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Get morning light exposure within 30 minutes of waking to anchor your circadian rhythm. Establish an evening wind-down routine that lowers cortisol before bed. Address nutrient deficiencies that impair glucose metabolism. Magnesium, B vitamins, and inositol all play roles in insulin signaling and mitochondrial function. Work with a qualified provider to test for deficiencies and supplement appropriately. The timeline for results is predictable. Most women report fewer afternoon crashes within 7 to 14 days of implementing meal sequencing and exercise timing. Full metabolic restoration, measured by improved lab markers and sustained energy throughout the day, takes 6 to 8 weeks with consistent intervention. If lifestyle changes don't improve your symptoms after 8 weeks, consider bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Work with a provider experienced in BHRT who understands metabolic health, not just symptom management. Monitor your progress every 3 months, track your waist circumference, energy patterns throughout the day, and repeat your metabolic labs. Fasting insulin should decrease, triglycerides should drop, HDL should rise. These markers confirm your metabolism is healing. This isn't about willpower, it's about restoring the biological systems that should be working automatically. Your 3 p.m. crash is a metabolic warning that your cells can no longer efficiently switch between fuel sources, but this is reversible with targeted intervention. Start with meal sequencing at lunch today. Request comprehensive metabolic labs this week. Subscribe to access our full research archive on metabolic optimization for women over 35. Our next video breaks down the exact breakfast formula that stabilizes glucose for 8 hours.